Hello. You'll also notice that the speed of the video has been doubled, simply because this talk is probably going to take 500 days to do. The reason I'm making this video is in roughly, what would it be, 23 days, I get back in my car, after loading it up for 3 days, that's the long it takes about, and I drive home. Yes, I own a house. Yes, I own a car. Yes, I have a relatively decent life. Don't get me wrong. But it's not home to me. It really isn't. My home lies in a community, shall we say. A community of people that gather as a, not an entirety, but a good number of them, once a year for the biggest festival in North America. Of course, I say the most extreme festival in North America. So no, I'm not 100% sure it's the biggest. But it's definitely one of the most enlightening experiences you can ever undertake. The event is called Burning Man. And to me, the event, the people, and everything else, put most simplistically, is home. It was really weird, to be honest with you. Last year was my first year actually there, but to me, I didn't feel like it was my first year. I felt that I'd always been there, I'd always been part of that. Now, the funny thing about that is that no one actually knew that I talked to or came across that it was my first year, and nothing I told them. I walked down there last year with a 12-foot geodome tent. Now, this thing is basically 12 foot at center, that means I could measure it straight across roughly 24 feet. First year down there, that's what I did for a structure. Yeah, real smart, huh? I was over-prepared to the nth degree. I ended up dumping out almost 21 gallons of water and I gave away out of a 7-gallon jug to the camp meet because they ran out of water by the time it was all said and done. So, as I said, I was over-prepared to the nth degree. But part and parcel of that is, when you say extreme survival, it's extreme survival. When you say it's extreme and radical self-expression, that's what you get. I go down there every year as a body artist. I paint people. I take my little airbrush and I paint. Now, last year I made the mistake of only taking one brush down. That was a pitiful mistake, I have to admit. Now, normally when I do paint, I paint in my house, in my garage. It doesn't matter if I take a week to do something, a month to do something, 6 months to do something. It really doesn't matter to me, because I'll fall in my house and I take my time and do it my own leisure. Down there, I gained into the joyous experience of having to rush and rush and rush to paint people in an efficient amount of time. The quality of my work went downhill big time, because I was just simply trying to rush through and get things done and get people done. I didn't spend the time that I should have painting people, and a lot of the pictures when I look back on them now really do show that I rushed everything that I did. There were 4 paint jobs I did. 4 paint jobs I did last year that I deemed to be of any sufficient quality, and every one of them, I took my time and I did the paint jobs my way. And I did them, well, 2 of them with the same person actually, which was unfortunate that I never have to meet up with her again, but who knows, maybe this year I will, maybe this year I won't. Being down there though is an amazing experience. You get what you want from it, that's all you'll find. In a lot of respects, this is kind of a self-confession of me, as well as kind of a brief history of what I went through. Down there, let me lay out the story for you. I am a self-perfectionist, I really am. I push and drive myself harder than anyone else ever could imagine doing to someone else. I don't care about criticism from other people, because you can't criticize me if I like criticizing myself. I don't care who the fuck you are. I don't give a shit. I don't need to hear people's criticism, because I criticize myself 10 times more than you can imagine. I fuck up, and I yell at myself for fucking up. And I was actually at a point when I went down there that I was more extreme than I've ever been on myself. I was demanding, I was pushing. At my workplace, I was actually called a tyrant. I was that bad, because not only did I start demanding myself, at that level, I started demanding everybody else. And I was pushing, and I was running around like a madman on this farcical quest of mine to demand perfection out of everybody and everything. My own ultimate downfall. I was fired from my job, basically. I wasn't fired, but I was released from my job. I was given my 2 weeks severance and sent out the door. It officially lists as my reason for being dismissed as what the hell was it exactly? Irreconcilable differences that do not warrant the firing of this individual, was the exact terminology used. Basically what it was is 5 people threatened to quit unless they got rid of me. And they made the choice of getting rid of me to save the 5 people would be the beneficial choice. Now, based on the job that I was doing and everything else, there was no grounds to fire me because the job that I was doing was excellent. Unfortunately, at the same time, my personal issues and my personal problems and my personal self-demanding/self-loathing warranted my dismissal. Based on the fact that I was not doing my job incorrectly, I was just creating tensions in the office that shouldn't have been created. Again, my own fault. Them letting me go was probably the best thing that has ever happened to me in my life. I have to admit. In my professional career, it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. I spent the next 24 days prepping myself for Burning Man 2006. And when I arrived, I was jaded for the first 3 days I was there. Nothing surprised me, nothing blew my mind, nothing was spectacular. And I stood there with a campmate, the actual kind of instigator/organizer of our group. And we were standing there out in front of the tents, and we were kind of watching people ride by, and I looked at him and go, I'm really not enjoying myself right now. He's like, why? I'm like, because nothing surprises me, nothing out of the ordinary. This is just normal to me, right? Like, in my head, Burning Man was just an extension of my normal everyday thoughts. It was just my thoughts given form, that was it. There was nothing that surprised or shocked me. And he looked at me and told me to get over myself and walked away from me. And I, at that point, went for a walk. Out past the man, out to the temple. And I sat in the temple for a while, and I literally broke down out there. I really did. It's kind of an amazing experience when you're sitting there and you're standing there, and there's nothing around but you. There was no other people out there at that point in time. There was nothing but me, the temple, and the desert. And it was like this weight was suddenly lifted off on my shoulders, and I enjoyed myself from that point forward. And then came the next morning. I went back to the camp, I did the paint jobs. I got up the next morning before sunrise, and I walked out to the temple again, and I sat down. And I was reviewing my life as I was walking up to the temple. And I was reviewing all the events that happened to me, and it hit me. My own arrogance, my own desire for perfection, my own drive, my own ambition was my curse, was my downfall. I went from having an ego that was supported by fact to having an ego that was unattainable in reality, but I kept striving for, I kept reaching for, I kept trying to achieve it. The concept of failure is not an option, no longer a creed that I live by, but it was what I lived for. It was what I lived by. Failure is not an option was supposed to mean that try again, if you get knocked down, stand up and try again, if you get knocked down, stand up and try again. Failure was not an option, became a mission. It was the mission. There was nothing else but that mission. It was the drive to do it right the first time. Failure was not an option the first time out. It was no longer to try and learn from aspect. I had lost that in my own stupidity, my own desire. And it hit me out there, sitting out there at sunrise, and the sun peeked over the mountains, and it was this humbling, almost crushing and overwhelming experience of just how small and insignificant and pathetic I truly was. And that my personal self-worth and self-everything meant fuck all. And I broke down out there, and I started crying. And a friend of mine from Calgary happened to walk up in this moment at the most bizarre time of the day and find me sitting there, tears streaming down my face of sadness and happiness. And I was just overwhelmed with this enlightening moment. And a lot of the stuff from my past had just melted away in this moment. A lot of my anger, a lot of problems and issues that I'd had personally just started to fall away. And she came up and she gave me a hug and she asked if I'd be okay. And I looked at her. And for the first time in my life, my answer was not, my answer was like, how are you doing? I'm alive. I'm not dead yet, or something, very cynical and very cynical. That's the best way to put it. I looked at her this person, and this friend of mine, and I looked at her in the face, and I said, for the first time in a long time, yeah, I'm gonna be alright. And I meant it. Genuinely meant it for once. And I stood up, and I walked back to camp. And I don't think the emotional gravity of what had happened fully hit me right away. Like, it had happened, and it was there, and it was underlying tone. And I painted that day, and I painted some beautiful work. And there was flaws in it, and I looked at it, and I just went, whatever. They won't know the difference. I ended up in a situation where I was painting for the sake of painting. I was painting for fun. I wasn't painting to be perfect or anything. And it was some of the worst painting I've ever done in my life, I have to admit, in a lot of respects. But it was some of the best painting I've ever done because I did it for the love of painting and not for the love of the final product. And I looked at some of the photos really shitty, I have to admit, like they really are. But I ended up in a situation where I was painting from 6, 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. eating and then crashing at night. And it was kind of depressing when you think about it. Like, part of the party has the night, part of the party has the day, and I missed the whole party. I really did. And it came to this situation of realization. Thursday night, actually no, it was Friday, it was Saturday, sorry. I came to the realization after getting up Friday night, actually spending my first night out on the playa, which was kind of an amazing experience all in its own right. So Friday night I got up and I went out, and originally I went out to catch a lecture. They were doing a pair of lectures back to back, and well, the second lecture never showed up, right? I was sitting there at the camp that the lecture was supposed to be at, and I just was walking my bike, and I thought the guy was supposed to be there. I was kind of perturbed to think, like, maybe this is the point of going across there at that time. Well, it ended up being probably the best thing that could have happened. I heard music coming from across the street, and I ended up catching a live cabaret show in the middle of the desert. And after the cabaret show, I was amazed, happy, enlightened. I was feeling up. I walked out and I smelled smoke, and I walked out and I caught what was called the birdcage burn. And I sat there and I enjoyed that, and I helped pick up the rings around it, which was the burn rings, and the one got hurt, and throw it through in the wooden chain of the burn ring pieces while I was standing there. And I was walking right up to the fire and then walking back from it, and it was hot and it burnt, but I hardly felt it. And I walked across and I caught part of the single electrode Dr. Megavolt's show. At that point they lost who's the front one that they lost, the few Tesla coils they had. I caught a bit of that. I kept walking, and I ran into this girl who was lost out in the middle of open playa, and she needed to find a bathroom, and I took her hand and walked her right over to her. She asked if I was a ranger. I said no. I just know stuff. And that was an amazing experience in its own right, because she thanked me so much for helping her out. And then I met this guy at a structure. It was this beat-up geodome tent with kind of a sort of a reminiscence of an Easter Island head. And we sat down and we talked, and I ended up getting ripped on mushrooms and walked over to the waffle and was saying to the waffle dancing, and my eyes caught one of the beams of the waffle, and I just started tracing everything out in my mind, all these lines. And I basically started tripping out, and I went over and sat down on the edge of it on one of the small planks. And Dad walked up to me and goes, are you alright? And I'm like, dude, I'll be okay. He looks at me and goes, dude, you're fucked up. I'm like, I'm totally fucked up. And I ended up walking back from that point on, because I just couldn't take it. Like, I was literally just fucked right up. I couldn't do it. I tried to ride my bike, and I went for about 10 yards before I basically gave up on that, because it looked like the fly was falling away from the bike as I was riding. It was just way too much. So I got off and I walked past the man, and I walked back to my camp. And I got to my camp, and I laid down in my bed, and I just started laughing as these images went piling through my head. And the next thing I knew, it was morning. And then I went to the man burn, and that was fun as hell. And then the temple burn. The temple burn is an experience all its own right. You've never seen a community of people shut the fuck up and observe that long of a moment of silence as the temple burned. It was the most emotionally moving experience that I have ever come across in my life. You can't help but be moved by standing there with the community in total silence, watching the temple burn. And to explain this to you if you've never been down there is very difficult. There are people's thoughts, wishes, there's memorials to past relatives. It's this mausoleum of thoughts, desires, honoring the past, honoring the present, honoring the future, all at the same time in this one spot, and then they burn it. And it's like this weight of whatever you put in there, taken off of your chest, given freedom from yourself, and you put whatever you want in there, and you let it go. And I'm getting emotional now just thinking about the whole thing, reliving it in my mind. There's no other way to put it, except if you've been there and you understand it, you'll know what I mean. If you haven't been there, it can be one of the most precious gifts you ever give to yourself, if you're willing to give it and receive it.